All right, back with another review request, and this is for iamdadescott. He wanted me to talk about and review Killer Party, which is a very, it's a light comedy slasher, kind of a college frat slasher movie, directed by William Fruitt, who also directed The House by the Lake, and Spasms, and he directed about 30 episodes of the Goosebumps series back in the day, written by Barney Cohen, who wrote Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and worked on the series Forever Night, for people that remember that show back in the day. And basically the story, the plot here, so in order to join a sorority, these three friends, they go to a hazing party in an old house where a sadistic, bloodthirsty demon spirit is lying in wait. And that's kind of the gist of the plot here. The cast here, there's nobody that I recognize. And honestly, everybody is kind of forgettable here. Of the three girls in the movie, the only one that I thought was okay was Sherry Willis Birch as the character of Vivia. She kind of gave me this April O'Neil kind of vibe in the movie, with the glasses and the hair. And I looked up her filmography, and she only did a couple of horror movies. She was in Final Exam and in this movie, and that was pretty much it. She didn't really go on to do much. Par Bartel, he's a professor in this movie, and you may have seen him in other movies. He was in a few films where, he had bit parts, like in European Vacation, Follow That Bird, Chopping Mall. But the rest of the cast here, again, there's nobody that really stands out. It's kind of forgettable acting. As far as other things to mention here, the film has an interesting opening where it starts off a certain way, like it's a funeral at a church, and everybody leaves the church except for one woman that stays behind, and she's cursing at the casket, and then she's taken into the casket by whatever is in the casket. And then once she's in the casket is lowered down into this crematorium. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Turns out it's a movie that is being watched at a drive-in. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But okay, what happens at the drive-in is sort of like a zombie outbreak. And then you get this band that appears out of nowhere, this band called White Sister, and they're playing the song You're No Fool, and I didn't mind the song, and the opening of the film is very bonkers, and it feels like a completely different movie, and I'm like, what is going on here? And then it turns out what is happening at this drive-in is another movie. I mean, it's basically a movie that is being watched by our main characters of this movie. So it's like a movie within a movie that is being watched by the main characters of our movie. I know it's hard to explain, but yeah, so there's a lot going on within the first 10 minutes of the film, and it was fun, and that's kind of, for me, where the fun stops. I mean, again, it's a crazy, from the way I describe it, again, it's not maybe the best description, but just the opening of the film, it feels like a completely different movie, but it kind of, it's fun in a way, I guess, and that's kind of where the creativity stops. I mean, after that, you get this other song. This is when you get to the actual movie. You got this song in the movie, These Are the Best Times of Our Lives. I don't know who sings it. It sounds like Bananarama if they were on drugs or extremely tired. It sounds like a Bananarama song, but imagine, there's no instruments and they've been up for, 3 days. Or if they were on drugs. I can't stand this song. I know some people I was looking up the soundtrack of the film on YouTube, and some people like the song, and there's some interesting people in this, the soundtrack of the movie. You have Laura Branigan in here, and other people in the soundtrack, and I'm like, okay. But again, that song, these are the best times, whatever that song, how it goes. And I'm like, this sounds like Bananarama, but it's not. Again, if, the whole band of Bananarama, if they were up for 3 days, or if they were on drugs, that's kind of how they would sound. And just a great chunk of the movie, nothing really happens. I mean, it's a very light college frat comedy. I mean, you get, elements of a slasher, but that doesn't come in until the last 15 minutes of the movie. Because a great chunk of the movie is just a lot of meandering between characters where, you kind of have a little bit of pranks here and there, but there's no moments that really made me laugh. Or, again, just a lot of meandering where characters are just, doing stuff, and you really don't get that sense of a slasher until the third act of the film. I mean, they kind of go into the sorority house, being haunted, and you get a kill here and there, but even then, the kills are safe. I mean, they don't reveal much, which apparently, the MPAA made a lot of cuts here, and you could tell because there's not a lot of blood and guts or gore for that matter. Again, it's very tame, it's very safe. There's maybe one or two scenes of hazing where the sorority girls are doing these initiations. It's nothing, like sexual or anything, but, there's a scene where, they take these eggs and they crack the eggs, and the three girls are lying on the ground, and they're pouring egg yolk into their mouths, and I'm like, okay. And again, it's not until the last, 15 minutes of the movie that it becomes more of a slasher, where you have this party and you have this guy or whoever in this, scuba diving suit, this old school, scuba diving suit, killing people off one by one. And again, you could tell that the kills are very tame here. It's edited down because you see no blood. As soon as somebody is killed, it cuts away fast. And the lead girl, the movie, long story short, she becomes possessed by this unrest spirit in this sorority house. And it's laughable, kind of what happens there. Because this girl is being taken over by the spirit, and then she is tearing the house apart. The inside of the house, the interiors, the rooms, the staircase. She is, going insane and, tearing apart the house. And, the two other girls are trying to, fight her off. And then it leads to the outside where they have a little, fight or whatever. And that wasn't too bad, I guess. But it is kind of laughable because of the makeup and the eyes and stuff. And if people out there like this movie, that's fine. But overall, for me, Killer Party is a college frat light comedy slasher that, it has an interesting opening. But after that, that's where the fun stops. Sherry Willis Birch isn't too bad, but it's quite a slog to get to the slashing. And even then, the kills are tame. So for me, this is one you could skip. I mean, again, if people like it, that's fine. I've read some reviews where people have called this underrated. And, to each his own. But this wasn't for me. And that's just my thoughts on Killer Party. And if anybody is interested in supporting the channel, I will put the link to my Patreon in the description. And there's a couple of options. General support, which goes back into the channel, but if anybody wants to pledge to that, I will give you a shout out in my next video. And there's diehard members, which is for crediting. If you want to be credited in videos such as movie reviews, movie related topics, and other content on the channel. So there's a couple of ways to support the channel. General support is non-credited, and diehard members is for crediting. So But that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.